That's so retrograde.
Hello, it's Tuesday. How's everyone doing? I'm the only one here, so I'm just gonna caffeinate. Hi. Hi, Kelly. Hi, guys. Really excited. Just gonna let Nicole come in and we'll. Oh, thank you. So, hi.
Hi.
Yes. Okay. So I want to give a little backstory to this conversation. First of all, hi,
Yes.
Nicole.
Hi, Elizabeth.
So good to see you. I feel like we're both looking really smart right now for this deep
Smart or
convo.
blind, one or the other.
um, so I was introduced to you through Ryan Weiss a few years ago, and then you came on the show, and we've stayed in touch. And we spoke a couple weeks ago, and I was really inspired to get serious around the journal speak because it's something that I had always felt a call in my heart to do, but never had the time. And so I was like really faced with it to just be like, I don't have that excuse right now. So
Yeah.
might as well go balls deep into it. And so first, I would love it if you could explain, first give us an intro, who you are, what you do. I want to people to reference the first episode we did with you. You'll be coming on again in the show next week, so we don't need to
Yeah.
get too into it, but give us a little brief rundown.
Okay. So essentially I'm a psychotherapist by trade, and I'm an author and a speaker and a teacher and a podcaster. So I've kind of taken my original practice and blown it out there to
Yeah.
share the message with as many people as possible. But the original story is that I am a person that was told when I was very young at 19 that I would be in chronic pain for the rest of my life, that I had a spinal condition and that I was destined for a life of chronic pain. And through my understanding and my practice of mind-body medicine, which started in my own life and then grew into my practice, then grew into this worldwide community that I've created, I teach people how to empower themselves and how to get their best life, their healthiest life, get rid of their symptoms, whatever they are. And we can talk about it. Obviously, they come through differently, and every person is totally different. And so basically my entire practice is now dedicated to bringing this message to people where they know that they can heal themselves, because mind-body medicine is really confusing to people because they think that someone might be saying that the symptoms are in their head or the pain is in their head, but it is literally just brain science that when our nervous system is in sustained fight or flight, it's going to come out somewhere in our body. And that can be from repressed trauma. It can be from repressed emotions. It could be from not understanding how to properly feel our feelings. So is that like a good enough intro to just
Yes,
get it
no,
started?
that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I just want to also say that you and I spoke a couple weeks ago, and I think like 5 people have mentioned the impact of your work in these past 2 weeks,
Seriously?
which, yeah, which you're a rock star. I'm going to say this. I think you have the biggest things coming, and I'm really good at calling these things out. It's like my
Thank you.
one true talent. So, I am just so grateful for your time today to sit down. So really what spurred this conversation is in me starting to do this journal speak practice, which I would love for you to talk about. Some things have coming up, and I have a bunch of questions around kind of like the do's and the don'ts. And so I
Yeah.
thought, why not have this conversation for other people to also to gain knowledge as well. And I just want to say hi to everyone who's joining. It's so nice to see people here. So great. So journal speak, what
Yes.
and why?
Okay. So as I said, we're all walking around in our society, and you might not, if you're a person listening, you might not say I'm in chronic pain, because the word chronic pain, I just use it as an umbrella, and what
Yeah.
it means is anything that's afflicting you. Do you have dry eyes? Do you have stomach problems? Do you have fatigue? Do you have a lack of energy for your day? There could be so many things that go under anything that's chronic, meaning it's showing up for you regularly. So when I say chronic pain, that's kind of where I'm going with it.
I like that
So
you clarified that, because I think a lot of times when people think chronic pain, they think something that's
back
like very
pain
linear and like one thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And like, of course, there is chronic pain that's like straight up no bullshit, like fibromyalgia, where people can't get out of bed and there's like zinging nerve pain up and down their legs. It applies to that. So it applies to basically the strongest, most intrusive cases, down to just like, little things that are bugging you, but just don't seem to go away, because this is brain science. So it's going to come out somewhere. So I created this practice called Journal Speak, basically through necessity, because the first person I ever healed was myself. And so going through that and learning that the only way to get these symptoms to stop firing was to somehow figure out how to safely feel our feelings. And I basically was doing this through trial and error. Dr. Sarno, who is my original guru and my mentor, who was a 50-year veteran of mind-body medicine at the NYU Rusk Center for Rehabilitation at NYU Medical Center. It's a fucking mouthful, but that's what he did.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And he taught me, when I first went to him in complete debilitating pain, that I needed to journal. Okay. All he said was journal. And I was like, okay, I'm a writer by nature. I can journal. And I started journaling, like the shit that we usually journal, which is like, I'm really tired and I don't know. And there was something that came to me. It was almost a spiritual awakening, which is, you're lying. And of course I wasn't really lying, but it wasn't the kind of like ugly, dirty, like secrets that keep us sick kind of stuff that I needed to get out. And when I started to realize that, Journal Speak was born. And I started to write the real capital T truth. And it doesn't stay true for you. It's like, I hate my parents. I don't believe in God. I wish my kids would move away and never come home. Like it's evil stuff, but it's stuff that is being said somewhere in your subconscious, because every one of us has these kind of frustrations and feelings. And so Journal Speak is a vehicle. It's a way of journaling, which is what Elizabeth and I were talking about a couple weeks ago when she really began it, where it's a practice. It's a finite practice. So it's a 20-minute practice where when the alarm goes off, you just can delete it. It's a purging. So it's not a journaling you need to keep. And I like another mutual friend of ours, Shoshana. Hi. Another mutual friend of ours, Shoshana Bean. Shoshana, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's got an incredible, miraculous healing story of doing my work as well, which has to do with her chronic upper respiratory infections. Right. But anyway, Shoshana likes to say, and this is super gross, but I love it. She's like, Nicole, it's like taking a shit. You don't have to look at it again. It's like
exactly.
Right? It's like a sneeze. It's like take the tissue and put it in the toilet and flush it down. Like, this is a purging. It is an energetic release, and it allows your nervous system to move from fight or flight to rest and repair.
Wow. So talk to me about setting it up and starting, because like, let's start with day one, because I kind of want to go through it, because I'm a little 2 weeks in. And so how do we start? So we're like, okay, sounds doable. Now what?
Okay, so before you even say sounds doable, probably you're a person who's like, why would I do this? Like, what's the point of doing this for me? And what I would say to you is, what's happening in your system is these chronic symptoms are firing because this is like a little bit weird for people, but it's really important. Your nervous system perceives your repressed emotions, like your emotional world, your leftover stuff from childhood, your bullshit, as a greater predator than your physical symptoms. It will choose it. It will choose you to be sick and in bed and quiet and safe in whatever way that means for you, rather than open itself to these unconscious emotions. And it's 100% true. I've been studying it for 20 years, so just take my word for it, unless you feel like studying it for 20 years. And it's happening to you right now. It's happening to every human being, because there's no cure for the human condition. So the first thing you would have to think is, why would I do this? And the answer is, you have a life beyond your wildest dreams waiting for you. 100%. It's gonna be better than it is today when you get rid of this shit. So it's just an imperative to just try. So that's the first thing. When you start, the best thing to do is to make the 3 lists. So we talked about this, right, Elizabeth, for you, like making the 3 lists.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Also, another person I have to bring up right now, because I just finished her book yesterday and it's across the room. Ruthie Lindsay speaks beautifully about doing this work.
Yes.
Beautifully. She speaks about it beautifully in her book. She speaks
Mhm.
about it beautifully when she's interviewed. She just
She
did this.
spoke about it on our show 2 episodes ago.
I heard it there, and it makes me
And
like
I
my
feel
heart.
so proud because it connected you guys, and
You
that's like
introduced us.
my joy in life, and it's amazing.
Yes.
You guys are such a match.
You brought us together, and now that I've read her whole book, which I haven't even gotten to text her because I finished it last night, but now that I've read her whole book, to know the impact that my work had on her journey like blows my mind.
I mean, you're having impact on a lot of people. I gotta tell you,
Thank you.
just
Thank
so
you.
you know.
So anyway, the point is that I talked about it with Ruthie. She discusses it in her book called There I Am.
There I
I
Am.
was interested in that book, that she tells the story, and I know Elizabeth is doing it. So the first thing to do is you create 3 lists, and the lists are not something to be scared of. It's not like if you see long lists, you're going to have to go through all these lists for you to be well. It's just to get a landscape of your life. It's like taking an inventory of your life. And so the 3 lists are we can either call it childhood or the past, anything that doesn't really apply to your daily life anymore. Stuff that happened when you were growing up, big issues, small issues. So it could be big things like money or like bullying, or, your mom was an alcoholic or you've been abused. It could be big things like that, but it's also little things like that time on the playground in 3rd grade, or, when I failed out of, college, or I guess that's a big thing.
So with this list, is it always like emotional pain points of our past? Is that kind of like the overarching umbrella?
It's anything that you think back on and you're like, I know that's a thing. We all
Okay.
have a deep knowing. We all have an inner voice that explains to us we're not looking at something because we don't feel like it. It's anything under that umbrella.
Okay. So from childhood, and then from present day.
So the present day list and by the way, these are bulleted lists. Like, it doesn't have to mean anything to anyone but you. So if you if you write on your list that time in 3rd grade in the playground, as long as you can get a mental picture of that, that's enough to have it on the list. Daily life is literally anything that could be stressing you today. Money, your partner, your kids, your dog, your job, coronavirus, anxiety, your car that broke down. It doesn't matter. Just a bulleted list of anything that you would consider daily stressors, or something that's like renting real estate in your brain right now would be daily life.
Okay.
Okay, and then the final and the last list is personality. So people get confused about the personality list. There is a way.
I am.
Okay, good. Well then, do you want to ask a specific question, or you want me to just?
I wasn't sure about that side of it.
Okay, so the personality list is like, you are a certain kind of person, okay? And usually in conversation, you could say, oh, no, I'm just the type of person that, if the house is a mess, I can't relax. Or I'm the kind of person where if I get a B on a paper, it's like I failed. Or I'm the kind of person where I can't have a good time if the friend I brought to the party isn't having a good time. Like, I'm that kind of person. It's identifying stuff in your personality that causes you to have to put a ladle of more anger, shame, fear, sadness, grief into this reservoir of emotions that we're always carrying around with us. So like, if I'm a perfectionist, everything that happens to me is filtered through the lens of that part of my personality. So perfectionism would go on my list, because every time I screw something up, I'll beat myself up about it, or like if you're your own worst critic, that would go on the list. The words you choose are not important. It's just that it means something to you. Like codependency is a big word, and it's obviously a huge issue. But like, when I put it on my list, what I put on is the way it always felt around my dad, because my father was a daily drinker and he was like a rageaholic. So you never knew when he was going to erupt on you. So I felt constantly vigilant around him. Like, I was walking on eggshells, and I was always afraid of like what might be coming at me. That's part of my personality, and affects everything in my life. So it's kind of stuff like that. Does that help narrow it down?
Yeah. And then we get into the practice. I've found for me, doing it first thing in the morning has been really helpful.
Clutch.
Right after my meditation. Should it be meditation and then that, or
Yeah,
journaling and then meditation, I wonder?
that's a big question. Well, here's the thing. We all come from different backgrounds. And I always say it's really hard to shake off the soil in which we were grown, right? We're all different people. And so if you're a person, and I don't think, Elizabeth, you're like this, but there are people that are raised in tremendous shame kind of backgrounds. Like, let's say, and I'm not judging any church, but like I've had a lot of people tell me they were raised in a church that told them like, you're a bad girl, you're full of sin. There are certain people that were raised in a certain way where they are not comfortable saying negative things. They're not comfortable saying, I hate you, or fuck you, or like, you know, I never want to see you again, like to anyone, even in their own mind.
Yeah.
People who are carrying a lot of shame, oftentimes it's better to journal than meditate, because then you can sit with that like love and self-compassion and like kind of clear the decks and forgive yourself for having to have said the things that you need to say because they're screaming on the inside of you.
Yeah.
Whereas like me personally, I meditate first because the way I begin my day is with meditation, and it's such a comforting ritual for me that I personally will journal speak after I meditate. But it's really, the reason I originally created the meditation after was for people who were blocking themselves by not being able to express in their journal speak because they felt terrible after. And so I like put the meditation after so they could like comfort themselves.
I wouldn't say that I was ever raised in kind of that shame example that you gave, but I will say that it was very challenging to kind of express those dark feelings, which I know in like the vast amount of different things I've gotten to try, like I know that, as you said, sometimes you just say it and then it just like totally negates it from getting it out. So even understanding the power of just voicing something and then realizing it's not real, or like talking back to it or whatever,
it transforms it.
It transforms it. But I had it took me, it was like a muscle that I had never really worked out before. And now I feel like what the fuck have I been doing my whole life and not exercising it? Because it does just that. It's like I will type something that like really is awful, and then it's no longer true.
I know. It's amazing. Like, I'll give you a really simple, sweet example because it's not really conflicted. I have a client once that her dog was dying. Okay. And it's like an animal, and it's so precious, and it's so guileless, and it's such an innocent being. But the dog was shitting all over her house, and it was getting up all night. And like, she literally was in debilitating back pain. And all she would complain about is, oh, I feel so sorry for him. I feel so sorry for him. And I go, honey, do you think there's something else you feel? And like through her journal speak, she was able to say, I wish this dog would just die. I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm depleted. I need to sleep. And it was like the moment she just let this out, it's like, honestly, it's like vomiting. It's like, let it out. It's poison inside of you. You're not a bad person. And I use this example because it's not like so triggering for people. Nobody would think she was a bad person for feeling that, but she did. And she got it out, immediately transformed for tremendous love and compassion toward her animal. Her back pain went away, and she was able to be present for the final days of this animal's life. And that's what this is. This is just allowing that normal human emotion to come out.
Yeah. So the 20 minutes, you set a timer.
Yes.
One prompt you gave me aside from the list is, how am I feeling today? Or actually, I went and I looked at one of your old YouTube videos about this, which your YouTube channel is awesome. So I'm going to shout that out. It's a very helpful tool. But how am I today is kind of like what I've left up on my Google Doc and going from there. So I find that, 20 minutes, this was funny. I was like, I started doing journal speak, but I can't do the full 10 minutes. You're like, honey, it's 20 minutes.
20
I was like, okay, there we go. Haven't started yet, apparently. So then I find that I kind of like go in and out of like venting and like getting to a point and getting something out. And then it's kind of like a little like lighter and kind of just like free form. Can you explain? Like, I kind of feel like I'm doing it wrong, but I don't. No. Okay. So can you talk about like what it looks like?
Okay. So like, I mean, I know I can say this because I'm like with the So Retrograde audience, But this is a bit of a spiritual journey, okay?
Yeah.
You are not doing this alone. When you open the portal of your journal speak, in my estimation, you are inviting in your highest guides, your highest energy, the human connectedness, the love of all of us suffering. Human life is suffering. It's okay. We all hurt. We're soft. You know, we're soft and chewy in the inside. We're hurting. And so you're opening up that portal and you're just saying, I'm willing to feel, come, let it in. So you're gonna ride it like a river. It's gonna, like, you're gonna have feeling and it's gonna come up and it's gonna feel like rage and you're gonna say things and then you're gonna be like, you're gonna feel the relief of that being gone. And then maybe you'll feel sadness, or maybe you'll feel joy, or maybe you'll feel giddy, or maybe you'll feel connected. Maybe you'll feel like your God is there. Like whatever it is that happens for you in those moments is what happens for you. The only way to do it wrong is to resist it and to not do it and to deny yourself this gift. That's the only way to do it wrong. Ride the river. You know, the only word I want in your mind when you do it is curiosity. I wonder what's coming next. I wonder.
Wow. Okay. So is there like a time frame, or is this like the rest of your life, 20 minutes a day?
You're dead. No, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. So here's what I will say.
Yeah.
People who have chronic symptoms of any kind that somehow in some Google deep dive trip over my work, we are the lucky ones. We are the lucky ones because you are now having an invitation to fully live your life. If you're having chronic symptoms, like people who have back pain or people who have horrible IBS or people who have migraines or fibro or whatever, yeah, at the beginning you got to do it every day, because really we're just talking about math here. If I have a reservoir and it's up to here, and of course, living a human life every day, something's going to get dumped into it. You watch the news, you know, you have like a call from your mother, like there's always going to be stuff dumped in. It's very simple. It's physics. What goes in must come out, you know? And so when the reservoir overflows is when you're going to get a symptom. So at the very beginning, it's about making sure that you're just getting in there. You're getting in there for 20 minutes, you're dumping it out, and you're carrying on with your life. After a period of time when you're like feeling free and most of your days feel symptom free, it's just a tool that will never fail you. It's not a life sentence to have to do this. It's just another, I mean, God knows, you guys, you and Stephanie are always talking on your episode.
That's here, by the way. Let's say hi.
Oh, hey, Steph. Hi. Talk soon.
Hi,
but like, you guys are always bringing up the most incredible tools. I listen to your show all the time. You have so many great ideas. And all, to me, when I listen to your podcast, what I feel is you guys are giving people a toolkit. Not everybody's going to use every tool every day of their life, but you have this big, beautiful, robust, vibrant toolkit. And you start your day and you say, what do I need in my toolkit? What do I need? And you can reach in. Journal Speak is just a tool. It's another tool that you can use to improve your life, improve your health, and balance yourself out.
Okay. So 2 weeks in, I would say like day 8, I suffer from really intense TMJ, and my face and neck were in so much pain. And I'm curious if it has to do with the practice. And in my head, I'm like, it's coming out, which would be great. Yeah. But I'm curious as to like what people tend to experience when they start doing the work.
Yeah, you have the best questions. That is an excellent question because it's exactly what happens. So think about it, okay? If life is a choice between what hurts and what hurts worse, and if we are constantly being tasked with figuring out, because I mean, people always think, oh no, there's a third option. I can keep doing what I'm doing and get a different result. And like, we're all susceptible to that thinking, okay? It's totally reasonable, but it's not true. So when we start doing something different, we're going to get a different result. And sometimes at the beginning, and this is not to scare people because you are on a pathway to freedom. When you're walking out of the woods, there are going to be some dark days. And there are going to be symptoms that change and move and morph. But if you just stay the course, you know, it's like, if you don't want to do this, you can stay where you are. And, you know, I always pull like the Dr. Phil out, which is, how's that working for you? You know, if you like where you are, you can stay there. But if you want to go out, it's not necessarily going to be an easy path. And, you know, the problem with our society is we live in a take a pill society. We live in get an injection society, you know, like go to a doctor and hand over your power society. That's like literally where we have lived for the past millions of years. And so in order to change that, it's going to take strength, and there will be symptoms that come up along the way, but they're no problem because they're not going to kill you. They are just the way that your body is expressing its emotional repression at the moment. But if you don't quit, and if you don't get caught up in it, it's going to pass, and then it's never going to have that power over you again. That's the key.
In that take a pill society, I can't help it. My brain is on this, but like, what's the timeline? Like, when do people start seeing results? Like, once the pain kind of erupts or the skin erupts, which is also something that I'm going through right now, which I'm just fine with. But like, I have a much different relationship with the pain and the skin stuff now than I did, you know, a year or two ago, when it would like feel
scaring
so heavy and scaring me, and like I felt so powerless. Now I feel, one of the byproducts of this practice is that I feel like I'm in control.
Yes.
Which is wonderful.
So important.
But just in like the take a pill of it all, which I can't help because I'm conditioned being, you know, who I am and living in this world, like how long until we can like do this every day versus like have it in our toolkit and go back to it?
Okay, so first of all, you know that the first thing I'm going to do is say that you're not allowed to ask that question.
I know. 100%.
But I'm also going to let you ask the question. The only reason, just for you guys to know, the reason I'm saying that to Elizabeth is like, okay, desire to be different than you are is read by the nervous system as fear. That is such an important thing to get. I'm going to literally say it again. Desire to be any different than you are right now is read by the nervous system as fear. So when your nervous system hears fear, the only thing it can do, it's not an emotional body. It's a reflexive flip a switch, okay? It's going to send pain signals because fear emits pain signals or symptom signals or breakouts or whatever, okay? So when you ask me how quick am I going to, you know, what's the timeline? What I would say is, if you are able to calmly wake up every day with radical acceptance and say, here I am. However this goes, it's okay for me. I'm going to do the practice. I'm going to do the next right considered action. And then I'm going to be here. That's the quickest way out. Because if you're like, I can't stand this. I can't stand this. I can't deal with this one more day. You're stepping backwards.
I love what you say. However this goes, I'm going to be okay. Because when you can really feel that, it's, regardless of if the symptoms are there or not, it is such a freeing concept.
Yes. And it's hard to have that kind of confidence. I want to bring connection to anybody who's sitting there listening to this going, yeah, but what the fuck? How can I say I'm in horrible pain? However this goes, it's okay for me. But what I try to explain to people is, when we want a situation to improve, we have to start with the end in mind. Okay, where do we want to get? And so we can have like a long-term, like, you know, far off goal. Okay, well, the goal is, for me, I want to be at peace. I want to start the day with freedom, and I want to be able to make my own choices. Like, I just want to be at peace, right? That's the end in mind. It has nothing to do with physical pain. That's the end in mind. Physical pain is part of that. If that's the case, then everything you should do should be to that end. So if you wake up and you're like, oh, I can't stand how I feel, I wish I felt different, what I would do is I would press the pause button. So I always tell everybody to wear your 80s tape recorder on your holster. Okay, remember those old 80s tape recorders? When you press it down, it stays down, the pause. It's so satisfying. It like clicks down. Wear it on your holster. And anytime you feel that kind of fear-driven thinking start, you press the pause button. You say, wait a second. If I'm all caught up in fear today, does that lead to my peace, or does that take me back? And the first thing you're going to realize, and you're going to feel it hit deep in your heart, which is that fear is not helping me. Even though it's natural, even though it's what I've always known, even though it feels like a reflex, I need to press the pause on it. It's not helping me. Okay, so now we're in pause, and now we say, how can I choose differently? What I would say about how we can choose differently is, I know it doesn't feel safe, but if I can say, however this goes, it's okay for me, I'm on my way to the peace. It's like, it takes practice. When you just said that about building a muscle, it takes practice, but it is so powerful. It's everything.
we're getting some questions that I want to address, and you guys feel
Mhm.
free to drop them below. What if I can't leave the feeling in the journaling and keep it for the rest of the day? So I would love some expansiveness on that in terms of, I think the question is like the journaling ignites something, and then it's
Mhm.
just like you feel the heaviness of it.
Yeah.
But please let me know if I asked that wrong. But that's
No,
a good question
that's
regardless.
great. No, it's a great question. So here's how I would preface the answer to that question. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody is there to witness it, does it make a sound? And the answer is yes, it does, a million times yes. Okay. So let's say that person who's asking that question has daily headaches. We just like to pick something that's really concrete. If you are going to journal about it and it's going to sit with you all day, you have two choices. Either have that or have your headaches. You don't get a third option. So if it's sitting with you for the rest of the day, what I would do is forgive yourself for needing to feel that so deeply and be like, wow, God, man, I did not know that that was in me so deep, but that tree has been falling in the forest. I have not been witnessing it. Today I decided to look. Today I realize it's making a sound, and man, that hurts. Sometimes it's just being with, man, that hurts, or man, I'm grieving, or I'm angry. It's like, hello, we have feelings. We are human beings who have feelings, and it's like about understanding that like feelings are made to be felt. That's the reason we have them.
Yeah. And just like we have the like take a pill society, we have the like push it down. It's
Mm-hmm.
not nice, or it's not cute, or it's not
Right.
acceptable to feel any, thing other than like happy or sad.
Yeah.
And to entertain and give a voice to these whole slew of emotions that we have intrinsically as human beings is like the biggest gift we can give ourselves, is what I'm learning
Totally.
in
And this
this
is the
work.
thing. This is the thing also. Like, if it sucks because you have to feel it all day, yes, that's like, let's not deny that sometimes things suck. You know, if life is a choice between what hurts and what hurts worse, it's not a choice between what hurts and what's awesome. You know, feeling your feelings all day might hurt, but like, how are the migraines working for you? Because it's really only those two choices. And so, like, the feelings are temporary. If you feel through something enough, you will not be triggered by it anymore. I promise you. I've been doing this work for 20 years with people all over the world. It goes away, but you have
Explain
to
that.
feel
So
it.
like in acknowledging, let's say like a feeling towards like a parent or whatever, and like being able to like acknowledge it and work through it, then
Yeah.
it like loses its power and
Yes.
its gravity. So that's a good question that comes to my mind about something petty I've been like that keeps coming up that like kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. It keeps coming up. Like at one point can I just like let it be? Or will I just
It's going to
know?
tell you. You don't
Yeah.
get to tell it. So let's talk a tiny bit about inner child work, because that's what I feel like your question brings up.
Okay.
Okay. So like there's something petty that's bothering you. And I'm just going to pick something petty because I need like an actual point to explain it. So I just taught a virtual retreat today, and there was a woman who
Amazing.
asked, I know it's fun.
Technology, baby.
I never, ever would have done this had it not been for quarantine. So I have to say that is a great benefit for something that started out very negative, that I'm doing these virtual retreats. So,
Awesome.
but anyway, so on this retreat, this woman was talking about how she was in the grocery store and there was a man. He was not wearing a mask. He was not aware of his personal space. And he came in so close when she was at the produce aisle to grab carrots that his face almost touched her shoulder. Okay. And she felt so angry, like, like to the point where she like could turn around and punch this guy. And like, as we always know, if it's hysterical, it's historical, right? So it's not just today that you're that freaking mad. Yes, he's rude, and yes, he's like not following social distancing guidelines, but she was able to say, which like honestly makes my heart feel so full. She was able to say, when I was a kid, I was never seen, and I just felt so unseen by him. And it was like, that's the stuff. That's the stuff. So when I say that inner child work, if we can go back there to that little girl and let's find her, and let's say she's 8, and let's say she's keeps asking her parents for help and like no one has time for her, and then they're arguing, and then she goes to bed and no one even noticed she went to bed. Okay, that's a pain. That's a deep pain in her heart. If she can go back to that little girl in her journal speak, and this is one specific thing I teach in my retreats, is we go back to the kid and we say this: I see you, I hear you, and I am fascinated by you. Please tell me, how is it to be you? I just want to hear. And for 20, I have chills all over my body just saying, because it's so powerful. And just saying to her, talk to me. Put your 20 minutes on your journal speak and let that day be your 8-year-old self telling you what it feels like when mommy and daddy do this or that, or how it felt at school today when somebody was mean, or how it just feels to be her. Her body is changing, or she thinks she's fat, or she thinks she's ugly, or she thinks nobody likes her. Listen. And then when she's done, all you have to do is say, thank you. It is so rare in childhood that anyone ever wants to hear us, that anyone ever just hears us and says, thank you for sharing. And it's so powerful. And so what I will tell you that I said to this woman, and I know it to be true because I've done it in my own life, when you listen to those little kids enough, all those little girls inside of you, when the guy comes in the grocery store and he gets too close, instead of wanting to punch him in the face, what happens? This is how your feelings become your story, and they don't trigger you anymore, is you just go, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, could you just step back a little? That's making me a little uncomfortable. And that's as far as it goes. And you don't have to bank pain and anger and anxiety over it. You're just like, that's just a person who wasn't aware of his space and maybe he's rude.
Wow. We have this question regarding grief. How do you sit with grief? Sometimes it's so overwhelming. Should I continue journaling on topics for more than one session? How do I forgive myself for the grief? Thanks for that really honest question. Yeah.
Grief is huge, and grief is a major topic. And here's what I'll say about grief. I believe that this work is very powerful and it can be done alone, meaning you don't need to have the money for a therapist in order to do this work. You can look at all the free resources on my website and you can do this alone. If you are being super triggered into like really, really bad darkness and your grief is overwhelming you, you might need to reach out for some support. Now, there's a few ways to do this. Either you might have a person in your life that maybe you've been like hesitant to really share the fact that you're doing this work, but maybe you know in your heart you do have a friend or a loved one or a family member who'd be willing to at least hear about it and maybe reflect back to you. Or of course, ideally, I'm a #1 fan of therapy. I've been in therapy forever. I love it. It's my joy for a week to have an hour a week to have somebody
it's all about me.
Exactly. What do you think of me? So, I mean, I love therapy. If you can afford it, there should not be a stigma around therapy. Mental health is so important. But let's just say neither of those things are available to you. I have an online community, like on Facebook. It's a private group. It's totally free. You don't have to sign up for anything to be in it. And it's private, so no one sees your posts but the people in the group. Go sign up there and talk about it. Share yourself. Nobody wants to be alone. But in terms of sitting with grief, it's just like sitting with anything else. It's patience. If you think about a little kid who's suffering, what we want as adults is to walk up to that little kid and be like, all right, okay, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here. You all right now? That's what we want to do because we're fucking annoyed. And we are. Okay, that's all adults are, annoyed and don't want to deal. But the little kid is your pain and the little kid is you. And sometimes you got to go back and visit and be kind and realize that no one showed her that kindness. Maybe you need to show her that kindness.
Wow. I feel like I have more questions in the journal speak, but if people want to drop some down here, we have a little bit left of time, a little bit more time left. That's what I meant to say. Is it okay to skip a day of journal speak?
Sure. But just understand that, like I said, if you're in the early stages of this and you actually have a lot of, symptoms or like you're really feeling it, it'd be like if you say, can I skip a day of eating healthy, or can I skip a day of exercise, or can I skip a day of meditation, or can I skip a day of skincare? Like you can, But like, just know that like, this is a gift for yourself. Nobody else is
Yeah.
in this conversation except you and you. You're not fighting against authority. Like, I think a lot of people don't do it and they're like, fuck this. But like, who are you fighting against? You know, this is for you. This is a self-compassionate exercise.
Yeah, I have to say that I feel like it's the secret to life. I
Thank
really
you.
do. I really do.
Thank
I
you.
think that like to give ourselves, I think I always was a handwriting journaler.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that that's like really that with the permission to type it and delete it,
Yes.
there's something about it that gets activated. And I also know that for some people who deal with chronic pain, you say that they can speak it into the phone. It's about getting it out. So I think just moving away from like that handwriting, like finite journaling into something that's just much more free flowing and that I know is going to like not exist when I'm done. It's just, it has activated something in a different way and there's less resistance.
So let me speak to the speaking into the phone thing just for a moment.
Sure.
I don't think that it is, I think it's great, but I don't think it's a replacement for writing, and here's why.
Right.
Because this thing up here operates at 3 billion miles an hour, and we have no ability to slow it down when it's really going. The very physical act of putting your fingers to a keyboard, or if you're a person who enjoys it, putting your pen to paper, as long as you plan to destroy it, and slowing yourself down to just take the amount of time it physically takes, even if you're misspelling everything and making 1,000 typos, it doesn't matter because you're just going to delete it, to get your thoughts to slow down. Here's what happens. And this also speaks to the spiritual awakening. It creates openings where the God energy or the higher self energy can jump in. So it's not all you, just being the you that you always are, blah, 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 blah. We're all so sick of ourselves. But it opens up this space for separate insight. So sometimes when I'm journal speaking and I am the fastest, I'm like slowing myself down, and that this is fast. I'm the fastest person you'll ever meet. It's just how I'm wired. And so for me to slow myself down to write anything out, I feel something coming in, and I'm like, it's like an insight. It's like this. And I'm like, wait a second. This feels just like it did when my parents got divorced. I never even thought of it that way, but the way I just felt in that meeting or in that interaction or with that mom who was telling me what my kid did wrong or whatever, that just felt like that day back with my ex-husband. It doesn't matter what the content is. It's amazing what will happen. And here's another thing, guys, you don't know what's going to happen, and that's beautiful. The openness, just the curiosity of, I wonder how this is going to go, and allowing it to be something where you're not always the director on the stage making everything happen, like inviting in the energy of this shared collective to allow it to heal you. It's really powerful.
My friend Kelly was wondering, do you recommend finishing your feelings about childhood before going into present day journaling?
No. So the reason the list is just the beginning exercise is it sets this beautiful landscape for you. I call it like Google mapping your life, because you're going to pull up and you're going to take a look and you're going to be like, whoa, okay, look at all that. All right. And then you take a look. So there are two ways to journal speak. You either look at your list and you pick out a topic, which could be anything. I say the thing that you look at and you least want to talk about, do that one. You know, go to the heart of darkness, just may as well. Or you can do what Elizabeth was referencing before, which is you sit with yourself and you close your eyes for a minute. You say, what am I feeling most right now? There's a feeling. It will rise. Am I tired? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling frustrated? Whatever it is. And then you put on the top of the page, why am I so frustrated today? And then you start the first sentence of your journal speak, I am so frustrated because. And it's really actually helpful to write out that sentence, because you're inviting in this energy. You're inviting in this feeling to rise. And you can start like a court reporter. So you can start by literally saying, I'm so frustrated because I am so sick of putting on sweatpants every day. And, you know, this quarantine is weary for me, or I have to homeschool my kids, or I'm really scared about money. So you could start with what's happening. But like, let's say, because I watch all the news programs and I see what's happening in the economy, and it's
no, stop. Don't.
You know, and it's like
Yeah.
if you see it and you know it and you allow it to rise in you, it will make it will open you to what you need to talk about.
Yes. Great question, which is something I experienced. We touched on a little bit was someone says they're find themselves journaling with fear of it being read. Any advice for being radically honest without that fear? With even knowing that it's going to be deleted, but just like tapping, like we're not trained, I think, especially as women, to acknowledge anything that's not a good emotion. You know, like we're just taught to just, it's not there.
This comes down to a choice. Do you want to live how you're living now, or do you want to be set free? We have to confront those thoughts that are so natural by saying, I hear you, society. I hear you, my old thinking. I hear you, my resistance. But guess what, dude? I'm not freaking doing it like this anymore because I'm suffering. I'm choosing something else. So thanks for sharing. I'm going to do this anyway.
And I will say that once you like let that like big ugly thought out, it kind of opens the floodgates, and you're like, oh, that wasn't so scary.
Yeah.
And it had the power it had on me that I didn't even realize was there, is like all of a sudden completely depleted. And now it's like, okay, like these thoughts are a lot of times just thoughts and like don't really hold that much weight.
And if you
like hold weight on us. If
you think about this voice, this journal speak voice that needs to come out, I want you to think of it as a 5-year-old child. This is not a sophisticated voice. This is an angry child who wants what she wants when she wants it. So for you to let it out and for you to be scared of it, it would be like you're bossed all day by a 5-year-old. And there's a 5-year-old in front of you all day being like, you did that wrong. Go over here. Do this. Sit down. Like, would you want to live your life like that? It's just old stuff that needs to be vented. And as soon as it's vented, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Like you look behind the curtain and it's just a little kid back there with like a big scary voice trying to run the show. And so it's really helpful to think about it like that. And to her point about being scared someone's going to find it, that's why I instruct people to delete it, because you need full freedom. You need freedom to say the ugliest things, the things that you would never want your family to hear, the things you would never want anybody to read. That's why you have to be careful. You know, like I have one friend who writes it into an email with no subject line, like no to address, right? And then just deletes the draft. So literally, it's like it's not saved anywhere. It's not. And what I do, I said this to you guys. I remember on when I was on retrograde the first time. And Steph was laughing. She was like, oh, that's so scary. I write it and then I delete it. Like I write it so it can't go in the cloud, because I get very nervous about the cloud, because the cloud is I don't understand the fucking cloud. I don't know what the cloud is, but all I know is
unclear about the cloud.
It likes to save things. And so it's just, you do your journal speak. I do it into an empty pages document, and then I click delete, and then it says, do you want to save the draft? And I say no. And what Steph was saying, she's like, oh Jesus, where did it go? And it's like, it's just out there.
I keep, and now that I think of this out loud, I don't know if this is the right thing. I keep a Google Doc tab open on my browser so that there's like zero barrier to entry when I open my computer. And I'm like, this is going to be the first thing I do. And then my 20-minute timer tab also on another part of the browser. And then I just delete it right after. So it's just up there.
Well, listen, that you have a safe household then. You know, I know like you live with your boyfriend, like people don't always have a safe household where they can keep anything. Like I want to tell people this. This is the road to complete freedom, but nobody is going to understand this language but you, and nobody should. So just keep yourself safe. That's all. You know, don't leave it sitting on your bed. Don't leave your computer open. Like delete immediately, clear it out. And then however you do, it's okay, as long as you keep that in mind.
And I don't want to be repetitive, but this came up as I was doing it. And we got a question. So she said, I journaled last year, but started again recently as the pain has returned. However, I feel like I've exhausted my issues and topics, so the writings are more ramblings. Any guidance?
Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with them being ramblings. Like, we're not doing this to get an A. You know, like this is not a blog that you're going to post. You know, this is just it's like I said, it's like a sneeze. It's like going to the bathroom. Like you're just getting it out. So whatever comes up that day is what comes up. I find myself I'm the guru of this shit. And I find myself judging myself sometimes. Like,
Wow.
oh, that was a lame journal speak. Just let it go.
That's how I felt today. I was like, there's nothing, like, I just felt like but I think for me and my tendencies, I just need to do it regardless, even if I woke up feeling
That's right.
loving life. It was like, I'm going to just sit down and I'm going to do it. And see what comes. And sometimes it's pure genius that flows through. And then other times it's like wackadoodle nothing.
And here's another thing. Here's another thing to remember. Life is a behavior modification plan. Like, I really want people to understand this. You cannot think your way into better feelings. You must act your way. So just do it. Like, if you sit down to do this journal speak and just complete it, no matter how it went, you are acting your way into better feelings. It will matter. Sometimes it takes a few days to have it land and be like, oh, I realized how much it mattered that I didn't give up on myself, that I showed up for myself today. That alone is so important.
Yeah, I find I've found throughout this, having non-negotiables around practices have really, really helped set up my day. And I know that like That's So Retrograde has talked about our toolkits and like, you know, morning rituals and like all that stuff. And I've like gone in and out of like being so steadfast to just not giving a fuck and like finding the medium in between that. But something like this practice has just really solidified my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
And it's an integrity thing of like, I'm going to do this work for not only these like physical symptoms that I'm having, but also just like a commitment to self, because I know there's something for me on the other side of not only just the practice that day, but like, what would this look like after a month of doing it?
And that's also really helpful for people. I always say, do the 28-day challenge. Like, take a minute and take a snapshot of your life and like maybe rate how your energy is each day or how your attitude is each day. Like, give yourself a 1 through 10 rating, how your pain is. Do this for 28 days and check back on that list. I promise you, you will see shifts and you will be like, oh my God, it's amazing.
I love you so much. Same. I just am so grateful that Ryan Weiss texted me however many years ago and was like, you need to know this person, I'm connecting you. And here we are today. And like I said, you're going to be on our guest next week on So Retrograde.
Yeah.
Which I can't wait for
so
that
excited.
Conversation, part 2. And yeah, thank you to everybody so much for joining in, and let us know if this is something that you've been doing, that you want to be doing, that you're going to pick up. It's really, I'm 2 weeks in and I am a fan.
And you know what, listen, I want to just say quickly, like, this is what we were able to do in this, like, however long we've been talking. It's amazing, but there's so much more to learn. So if you guys, I recently partnered with a social media manager who's helped me consolidate all my offerings. So if you click the link in my bio, everything I have is right there. I've got an online retreat coming up, a big one, the one with all my Omega instructors, because all my in-person stuff is canceled, obviously.
Yeah.
So I created this online retreat, June 5th through the 7th. You can sign up for that. There's plenty of free stuff that you don't have to pay for. There's a YouTube channel. There's my online community. There's the podcast. So just like give yourself the gift of being curious about this and check it out for yourself, because if anything in this conversation sparked you, you have a lot that you could do for yourself.
Absolutely. And tell us your website again.
The website is thecureforchronicpain.com. And since we're on Instagram, the quickest way to get to anything is just click the link in my bio.
Link in bio.
Link in bio. Yep.
Awesome. All right, Nicole, thank you so much. Thank you, guys. We're going to save this convo. So if you feel like anyone in your life needs to hear it, pass it on.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Love you.
Bye.